This film is a little bit different from the other films in our series because we're stepping out of the narrative of Christ's life and looking at a type of image that does something a bit different, aren't we?
Yes, this type of image is described by art historians by its German name, an Andachtsbild, a type of devotional object, an object that encourages meditation, prayer, and empathy. This carving by a German artist called Hans Leinberger was done around 1525, and it represents a type of Andachtsbild that is known as a man of sorrows, or by its Latin name, an imago pietatis. And you can see that clearly this is a moment before Christ's crucifixion. He has been whipped with a scourge, so you can see evidence as you walk around this object of the whipping marks on his back. He's also been crowned with the crown of thorns, and this occurred in a moment where he was being mocked before his crucifixion. So we're not seeing a moment described in the Bible, but that's alluding to different moments.
And it's infused with melancholy, isn't it? And at the same time also a sense of stillness, of quite surprising sort of stillness, which corresponds perhaps to that sense of this being a distilled moment, as you were saying, that a bigger story and the spirit of that bigger story is being compressed somehow into one image and one moment in time. And in that compression we find so much packed in, including perhaps a meditation on Christ's nature as both human and divine. This is a fragile Christ who's had so much inflicted on him, and yet here in his left hand we almost see his characteristic two fingers with which he blesses and bestows a divine blessing. The hand is sort of wilting here, but still the fingers are extended as though that blessing is waiting to be reactivated in some way.
And this is just one type of an Andachtsbild, and we're going to now look at a lamentation or pietà. We've just seen one type of Andachtsbild, a man of sorrows, and this is another type. It's known as a lamentation or a pietà or a Vesperbild in German, and it represents this scene that's not described in the Bible, but we can see here Christ's dead body. So it's been lowered from the cross and placed in his mother's lap, and she's mourning over his body. This carving by a Spanish artist, Juan de Valmaseda, was done probably in the first quarter of the 16th century and probably originally formed part of an altarpiece.
And I think the emotional impact of these images is brought out in little details like these bruised knees which we see here, which recall the fact that Christ, when carrying the cross to his crucifixion, fell under the weight of it. And we see the effects of that here on his knees. And I think to a viewer devotionally engaging with this, that would speak very directly and powerfully to their own experience, because everyone in their own lives knows what it's like at one point or another to be brought to their knees by life. And so we feel the solidarity of Christ with our human condition in an image like this one. And yet, a greater destiny is in view. This is a pathway not just imposed upon him, but willingly undertaken.
In this lamentation, or pietà, we have Christ in the lap of his mother, and he's supported on one side by John the Evangelist and Mary Magdalene on the other. There is another type of pietà in which he's supported by angels. So we should look at that example next. And here we are in the Gemäldegalerie in front of Giovanni Bellini's Dead Christ with two angels. And what Bellini has done in this composition is that he's taken Christ's body that now fills the entire picture plane. And we have to imagine him as almost seated on the edge of his tomb. Of course, he's dead here and he's being held up by these two angels, but in his upright posture, there's something about his imminent resurrection, as if he's about to come back to life. And actually, the way his head is thrown back, it seems to suggest slumber. He seems to be sleeping rather than dead, and it's as if he might awaken at any moment.
His mouth seems almost slightly open, as though about to draw in his first new breath. And the presence of these two angels seems to anticipate something that the Bible describes on the morning of the resurrection, which is that when the disciples arrive at the empty tomb, women first and then men, they find not the body of Christ, but two angels waiting inside the tomb who announce to them, he's not here, he's risen. So it's almost as though we're here on the brink of the moment when this body will depart and only the angels will remain.
It's a very privileged view in that sense.
And the fact that almost the death and the resurrection of Christ are all present here, compressed in this one image, makes it a wonderful image, because that life, with both its death and its sorrows and its new life and its triumphs, are all evoked in this one image for our devotion.